Hey, this is Mike with the Madison River Fishing Company. This is the first in a series of videos that we've decided to do to share some techniques and tricks and tips and ideally to make things a little bit less confusing, a little bit more understandable, possibly present some things in ways in which they have not been presented before or you have not heard before. We'll do some on fly tying, some on rigging, potentially some on techniques. So first one today is we're going to talk about fly tying thread. In particular, when you're just getting into fly tying, it can be a little bit confusing of what thread to use and why and when and all that. So I want to just give you a few little tips and tricks here. First of all, thread sizes. That's kind of a big one for most people. And you can go into a fly shop and go into a fly tying section and start looking at thread sizes and totally bewildering what's going on here. So just want to kind of break that down for you a little bit. I'm going to basically stick with the two main threads that are available today. The ones we sell most of are Danville and Uni threads. Those threads are very, very common. I would say most people in the tie flies either use or have used both those or one or the other of those brands. They are a bit different. I have my preference. I've been a Uni fan for many, many years. But they do, again, have different ways they size or they indicate the sizing of the thread. And so really, and there's really two main ways that companies will do that. The first one is the aught designation, this being Uni thread 8-aught. I'm not focusing on that right now, but so Uni will use the aught designation. So 8-aught, 6-aught, 3-aught. And those basically, the bigger the number, the bigger that initial number, the smaller and sort of weaker the thread is, all right? Smaller diameter being a good thing in a lot of ways. So 8-aught being one of their smaller ones. I believe they've got one or two sizes smaller than that. But the 8-aught, 6-aught, and 3-aught are generally the ones we're going to use the most in most of our fly tying. I probably use 6-aught, 70, 80% of the time for most things, including saltwater things. I'll explain that here in a bit. Danville actually uses, and there's several other companies that are, I think, switching to more of the denier designation as far as thread sizing and strength. And basically, denier is an old textiles measurement, and it's based on weight. So it may be a little bit more understandable, applicable, although those of us have used the threads with aught designations for years kind of got that down. But essentially, the denier of a thread, the smaller the number, the lighter the weight, and the lighter the strength of the thread. So and if you're looking at across thread brands and kind of want to have a general idea of what to compare, so we'll go with Uni 8-aught. 8-aught thread is equal to about 72 denier, and that's got a particular breaking strength. They will, between the companies, Danville and Uni and some of these other companies, sizes will vary in breaking strength a bit, just based on the materials they use and how they use them, whether it's twisted, whether it's flat, and things like that. So 8-aught generally equates to about 72 denier. 6-aught is about 136 denier. And 3-aught is about 220 denier. So if you're making those, and those we're just going to kind of go with those. You'll also see a Flymaster Plus from Danville. That's about a 210 denier. And the Danville monocord is about 3-aught or about 116 denier. So it's not an exact comparison, but you're going to get kind of close. So that said, the use of thread in fly tying is critical, of course, and the breaking strength of thread is critical. It will, of course, speak to the durability of your flies. So you want your flies to hold together and be durable. You also want to consider when you're picking a thread and picking what you're going to use it for, how much tension you're going to need to put on that thread to bind the materials. And that tension will vary. The variation of tension in fly tying, in my opinion, is one of the most important and under-taught skills in fly tying. I don't know that I've heard anybody actually teach about thread tension or about learning about thread tension. And to me, that's a critical point in tying not only durable flies, but flies that look good, finishing off a head, have the smoothness of it, things like that. So that's one of the reasons I really like uni thread. Uni is a twisted thread off the spool, but you can untwist it to make it sort of flat. Danville is kind of known as more of a flat, lay flat thread. It's not twisted, right? And so that will allow for much smoother bodies in general, although you can twist it and do those things as well if you want. But uni to me is a stronger thread. So an 8/0 compared to a 72 denier Danville has more breaking, it's higher breaking strength. So that's why I like it. And it just, for me, it's just more versatile. And so I'm a uni guy. A lot of guys who use Danville. Danville's, I think, an older company, been around a long time. So anyway, back to breaking strength of thread and fly tying. So one of the things that I think, and I've never seen this taught anywhere, that I think is super critical when you're first learning how to tie flies. Everybody wants to get on the vise and start, making flies, which is, yeah, of course. That's the point. But for me, teaching fly tying, and one of the things to make life easier in general is working with your materials. So ultimately what you want to think of is using your materials, in particular your thread, to sort of the maximum tension that you can put on there, which is going to make your flies more durable, going to make, you'll need less thread wraps for a particular application, for a particular material. Meaning if you're going to put, say, deer hair on a hook, you're going to need to put more pressure on that to sort of spin it and get it to compress, because it is hollow, and so it's going to take more tension than, say, a synthetic material that doesn't have, it's not quite that compressible, things like that. So one of the things I'd like to share, one of the little techniques that you can use here, is to practice tensioning your thread and see what the breaking strength of your thread is and how that feels in your hand coming off the bobbin, and how to sort of manipulate that, okay? And so first thing, and I will tell you one other little trick and tip here, is when you get a spool of thread, you buy it. Ideally, your fly shop's going to be selling through their thread, and you're going to get a brand new spool of thread, or you're going to get a newer spool of thread that hasn't been sitting on the shelf for a long time. If you have thread like I do laying around, that you've had maybe for years laying around, it may lose some of its strength, particularly in the outer layers of it. So if you go and wrap your thread on a hook and you find it's breaking at a lighter weight than you think it should, pull some of that thread off, some of that older thread off that first layer, off that spool. Just pull a bunch of it off, discard it, do away with it. And so once you do that, you'll expose some of that newer, sort of unaged thread. It'll be a lot stronger. That seems to be something that's very helpful, especially with older thread later on. Anyway, okay, so the deal is here, what I really think that a lot of beginning fly tyers ought to do is just put some thread on a hook and try to break it. See how much tension it takes to break the thread, okay? And so when you attach the hook to the thread, you go and just really kind of give it a pull. This is a 6/0 thread. This is a saltwater hook. So you can see it broke at a certain amount of tension there. So this is going to be a little bit heavier thread. Wrap it on the hook, and you can see, you might be able to see it's bending the hook a little bit. A lot more tension there. So do that a few times, kind of get a feel for the breaking strength of your thread. And as we go forward, we'll talk a little bit more in some other videos about managing thread tension, how to do that, why you do that with different materials and things like that. That's it for today. That's where we're going to go. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.